Sven, it's great to have you here.
Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. Unique Concepts. What is so special about Unique Concepts? So what do you do? And what is your, I would say, hero product? So what is your star in the portfolio?
I think it would be a bit strange if we would say we are so special, but we do things a bit differently, that's correct. So we've built 14 concepts nowadays, and our star or special is Pesca. It's now 10 years old since this week, and it's still full every night, also in the new cities we went to.
Wow.
And I think with all our concepts we create something that doesn't exist yet, so that's new, and we do it with a different kind of business model. So our guest experience is completely different, our team has a high quality of service and engagement, I think because of our HR model, and we're quite strong in marketing. So those three are really concepts we do different than other F&B operators.
Mm-hmm. We will dive in later on, dive into the details of Pesca and other concepts. But one question on our side would be, you create uniqueness, right? But if we see or look at the market, you see very often concepts that are interchangeable. In your eyes, with your expertise, do you think that hospitality got the word experience kind of wrong? Is there something that you would not support?
Yesterday someone was explaining that our industry, I believe 10% of global GDP is going into hospitality. We're so big, we have so many people working with us, we have so many restaurants, we have so many bars, cafes, hotels. I think that the market is getting a bit saturated. You see it with hotels, but you see it also with restaurants and bars. So you need to redevelop yourself and be different than others. You can do that with the cuisine, the kitchen, the people, how they're really well organized, prepared and engaged at your brands, but also with the design or with the concept itself. So you need to do things differently to stand out so that people will remember you, but will also talk about you to other guests. So I don't think that we're doing it wrong. I just think that we're doing a lot of the same thing, that we're too much copying each other. And I think it's time for new fire into our industry.
Where do you start such a concept? So do you start with a business model? Do you start with a team? Do you start with a brand? So what is your starting point?
That's fun question. I never answered it, I think. People never ask you about the process. Some people think we're developing concepts the entire day, but I think it's just 1%. 1% of getting a restaurant somewhere. The rest is all execution. But we start with a few couches and a few bottles of wine. And with that we just sit together and finally we think about, we have this location, what is still missing in the market, what are upcoming trends, and what could we do different. And then we try to see, let's say, a blue ocean of something that's not yet there, and then we go and continue and develop. But developing a concept never stops when it's opening. We always say that only 50% of the concept is developed when you open. The other 50% you need the first 2 years of tweaking, changing, and still adding things to the concept. So it's not that we have a booklet like this is it. No, we really, you need the time when it's opening.
Okay, that's interesting. So what would you say, because I think it's in the nature of your concept that people want to come back and push other people to visit your place, for example, the Pesca.
Yeah.
What does it really take to influence people the way that they send you people?
It's the most strong marketing in the world. If you go home, you're on a birthday, and you've been to Pesca, for example, and some other person that says, oh, I'd like to go to a fish restaurant next week. Oh, you should go to Pesca, it's so great. And that other person, your uncle, he goes home, and in the evening he meets some friends. And someone names Pesca, and what does your uncle say? Oh, I heard great stories about that. He has never been there, but he heard it from you, and he trusts you, and he tells others. So before you know, one positive guest can influence hundreds of other guests with a positive story about the restaurant. And we design our restaurants, standard restaurant is designed at 100 points. So you get 30 for food, 30 for staff, 10 for interior, 10 for the bill and price. But all kind of points makes 100 points. We make sure that our concepts, our restaurants, can go up to 140 points. So we add all kind of extra features so that we can go above the 100 points. And what happens at 100 points? If you're above, you will tell everyone, oh, you need to go there. That was so great. If you end up at 80 because something was off, you won't talk about the restaurant. But if I make sure that you end at 120, you will tell to everyone, oh, I've been to a place. So we do extra experiences in the toilets, when people pay their bill, when the team is extra intense and engaged, and all kind of things where we can reach 140. And that means that almost all guests who leave our restaurants or concepts are very enthusiastic to other people and tell about it because we went above the 100 points. And I think that's the game.
Mm-hmm. So it's not about one concept and one business model you're inventing, but it's about a lot of storytelling in diverse places in the experience itself. Did I get that right?
More touch points than general. In general, you sit somewhere, you have a menu, you eat, you dine, and you leave. That's it. But if you add different kind of levels to that, then people are surprised, they love it more, and they remember it. I mean, we always look very much into the exit experience. So I think it's a bit underlooked. Exit experience is when you pay the bill and you leave. You get a bill to the table, you pay and you leave. It's always a very stupid moment. You had a lovely night and then you need to pay. And Dutch people, well, I don't know about Italians, but Dutch people, they don't like to pay. You need to pay, you don't want to. So, for example, at Pesca, we have a whole exit experience where you leave a review in a book. There's a host asking you how it was. You get a free ice cream. You talk about the bill and you leave. And Dutch people love it when they get something free. So instead of talking about the bill, how much was it, what everyone does, they walk away with a free ice cream. So they say, oh, that's nice. I got a free ice cream, I walk away. And they have a very good last taste of the evening. And Italians are good with that, because I love places where you leave with a free limoncello on the house, you know? And you get something, you finish the night. But most restaurants suck in this. You only pay the bill and you leave. And paying the bill is always shit, especially nowadays, when bills rise and go up, etc. So, yeah, it's one touch point where we say put some more attention in. And guests will love it and remember that when they leave.
Mm-hmm. That sounds great. Are these mini experiences, are the ideas for these experiences or these redesigns of known experiences, are these ideas coming from the employees, or is it designed by you and your team, the management team? It's
both, but of course I think about it every day. I dream about it every day, you know, it's my job, my life. Most people who work with us, it's not their life, it's part of their life, and that's how it should be, of course. And a lot of times they have very good input and influence, and we take their input, but most of the things come from the head office, where people are daily busy with growth and new innovations, new trends. So yeah, in general, more from the head office than from the people itself. Yeah. Uh-huh.
I heard that you are you're treating your employees not like employees, but like entrepreneurs. How do you make that a reality? So how do you bring somebody from an employee to a co-entrepreneur?
I think the most important thing is ownership. That's what you would like to have, that people have ownership about the business. So to get ownership, you need to feel you're part of the brand and you're part owning the brand. And for us, two things are very important. One is transparency. So we're very transparent with the team. They can know everything, all the numbers, the features, how it's going, etc. We give them the input so they can see how the business is going. And the second thing is profit sharing. So we take care of the people a lot. We have a different HR model, which I'll tell about later. But profit sharing is one of them. How cool that you're sharing parts of the profits also with the team, so they're also engaged to make more revenue, a better revenue, make sure guests leave. And for example, we really take care of them as a family. People say sometimes it's stupid to call them family, but we do. It's the trips we do, of the dinners we do with the team, or we have unlimited after work drinks. We take care on a different level, so they take care more of the business. I think if you treat them as employees and you bond them to all kind of regulations, I think they also do that to guests. This is my job and this is it. Mm-hmm. And we engage them much more to feel a sense of ownership.
Can you describe this HR model very briefly?
We have about 40 points of things we do differently, or we try to do differently. So we're not gods. It's not that we're there. We just try to get better every day. But they're all kind of points on which we work differently and work different with our people. And that works so far. I mean, last year the whole team went to Barcelona altogether, and before that to Paris, and before that to Antwerp. So we invested a lot in the moments that they go out. We have our own Pesca Academy, where we train people and get them better, and they learn all kind of things. Like I said, we have unlimited after drinks, or higher management has no vacation days. They can decide themselves as long as their responsibilities are met and the restaurant is going well. We also do a lot of data-driven thoughtfulness. So we think it's important to know everything of all our people, of all our team members. We never call them staff, it's more colleagues or team. But if we know everything, we can do something with it. So imagine someone's bike gets stolen. Then we can choose to buy a new one for that person the next day. It's a bit ridiculous maybe, but they will remember it for the rest of their life. That's how you stand together. If someone dies in the family, we can, at least if we know, we can choose to send flowers to the funeral, for example. It's just about how you think about each other and you care about each other. With chefs, for example, once every so many years, with the head chefs, we go to their favorite restaurant in the world, favorite restaurant in Europe, otherwise it would get very pricey. But I think those are all kind of different elements that they appreciate a lot, that works very well for them, and yeah, that in the mix that we do works very well.
Mm-hmm. So it's again not the one thing, it's a lot of little things that create this employee experience in this case, or co-entrepreneur experience. Nice. Yeah. If you would have to create a hotel from scratch, what would you make differently than anyone else?
The challenge nowadays is that don't do things the same thing that everyone does. So for example, check-in, I would do differently. I would make sure there's no check-in, just a welcome. I just hate it when I get to hotels where I still need to give my passport and credit card and details. And you can all know that in advance. You know I made the booking. Why do you need that? I think that's one thing. It's the same thing, how rooms are being cleaned, how that model works, how breakfast works. I would just rethink about all the elements and make it different. And I think that's what people in the end will remember, because you do something different than that they are used to.
You have built some concepts that people genuinely want, right? What is the one question that most of hoteliers or restaurateurs never ask?
I think what they never ask themselves is, and when I get back to the last question you ask, is how they can reinvent themselves. So they need to think about every element in the process and see if they can do it different or better. Different than competition and better than guests are used to. So every element in the guest experience, how can it be different, more thoughtful, or more warm in the sense of hospitality to create a different kind of experience? I think that's a question a lot of people overlook. They just do the same things that all other hospitality persons or hoteliers or restaurateurs have been doing for the last decades. And that's a pity.
How do you bring, you have a lot of different experiences and elements, right? And again, we heard that's your recommendation, to rethink every step in the process, right? Or in the experience.
Yeah.
How do you decide what elements to communicate and what not? And what do you leave to the word of mouth? Because you can't communicate anything you do differently, right?
No, I think in the end, we don't communicate that much about those things. So people recommend us because they don't really know, but it feels so good what they've just experienced, and it's all of that together. We just communicate the general broader story of authenticity. So with Pesca, it's about the fish market, the quality of food, the people. So there's a style where we communicate about. Of course, yes, the food, the fish, the market, the people, but also the foundation, for example. For people nowadays, it's very much important What is your purpose? How sustainable are you? So we choose certain elements where we communicate about, but the small touch points and everything along, people will experience, and they just say, oh, you need to go to that restaurant.
But you communicate, I've seen on the website of Pesca that, for example, you decided to communicate the dynamic pricing,
Yeah.
Right? And this is, so you are, how did you decide to communicate the dynamic pricing element and not maybe the free ice cream element?
Yeah, the dynamic pricing is a bit more important because of it we have no food waste. You have a market element, but that's something on a website. And let's be honest, how many people still look at a website? They go for the booking, but go through the whole website. I think it's more, we don't communicate about it on social media, for example. And that's where most people find you nowadays. Mm-hmm. It's not Google anymore, it's via Instagram or TikTok or ChatGPT. That's where people find your restaurant in that sense, and they like to book it. And when they hear good news about your restaurant, they anyhow book it. They don't go to a website anymore. So we have it on our website, but I should go in the data how many people still look at that page, but I don't think much, no.
How many people are travelers in the Pesca, for example, and how many people are residents, locals?
It depends on the location. So if I take, for example, the Netherlands, in Amsterdam, which is more a tourist city, we have about 50%, let's say, tourists and travelers, and 50% are locals or expats. That's a combination. But if you look at Rotterdam, for example, a more Dutch city with less tourists, 80 to 85% is local, and just 10 to 15% is international or tourists. So you really see difference in that, and the fun thing is that you also see difference in spending, eater patterns. A Friday and Saturday is way more important than during the weekdays. It's really, it's interesting to see.
Mm-hmm. I'm asking because, of course, maybe travelers are relying on most of all on TripAdvisor and other channels where they see the comments of the guests. And locals maybe more on social media, on the classic social media like Instagram and stuff.
Yeah, we see that, just nice to add, we're 10 years old now and we still have guests returning after 10 years old from all over in the world. But word to mouth goes quick, fast, and it's very reliable. I regularly eat in our restaurants, but I'm never the boss or something. I'm one of their colleagues, okay, but I still eat as a guest. And then I always ask the guests around me, how do you get here? And the answers you get are so interesting, so funny that 2 weeks ago, I remember there was a man from Canada. He said, oh, my neighbor in Canada said, you go to Amsterdam, you go to Europe, go to this restaurant. And that's cool. That's someone from Canada, his neighbor, and he comes to Pesca because his neighbor said you need to go there if you go to Amsterdam. That's one of my favorite restaurants in the world. I think that's what Pesca can do, and not all our concepts are at that level. It costs also a lot of energy to get to that level. But I think that's a cool thing, and that even people in their back home or country recommend a restaurant where to go to.
Mm-hmm. Nice. To close it, what is in your eyes a trend in hospitality that is overrated at the moment, and what is maybe underrated at the moment?
Let's start with the underrated, because I think that's also a beautiful opportunity for the future. Especially if I look in hospitality on the hotel / combination with the restaurant side, I foresee in the future we go more into experiences, and we go more into experience that gives us a peace of mind, that gives us rest, that gives us focus on the location we go to. So for example, farming hotels. I really believe that a big part of the newer generations, their focus will be on locations more in nature, more standalone, where they'll go to for a beautiful spa, beautiful hotel, walks in nature, and great food. Great, healthy food. And those locations you don't need to leave. So you go there, you find your rest, your peace, your relaxation for a few days, and you don't leave the hotels. And it's actually one of the things I love to do. And I think we're more and more in this busy world where we're always on and engaged and doing things, that we're looking for those kind of experiences. So we will go less to city centers where it's busy and crowded and we will more go into nature, into rest, into peace. I think that's very underrated. Some people are starting to understand it, but that will definitely be a big part of the future. And I think, overrated at this moment are the general city center experiences. And people still love to see certain cities, but people don't want to go to Rome anymore, stand in the line for half an hour, pay €5 for a beautiful stairs, fountain. You did that in Rome, eh? There's a tax now you need to pay to get to the beautiful fountain, the Spanish stairs, I believe. I think people are not, in the future, that's overrated, that experiences, and people search the smaller cities, the authentic experiences. Yeah, I think that is overrated at this moment, but I know it's hard to say, and it will take a few decades before that changes, but the start is already there.
And maybe it will depend on the country, since we see in South Tyrol a lot of people that need that photo, you know, and that might push people to certain spots in the world, right? So bucket list ticking. Looking back in 10 years, what will have been the big missed out opportunity in hospitality? Last question.
The big missed out opportunity, I would say again, the piece of mindset for this generation. So instead of focusing on city centers, location, 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 I think we should focus on the south of Tyrol. I think we should focus on the Dolomites. I think we should focus on those hotels in nature. And they are there and it's growing, but I still think it's a missed opportunity if you now would buy a hotel in the city center, because they all think that's the best spot. In New York, you need to be in the city center. No, I think people will go more and more into nature, into the quiet peace of hospitality.
Awesome. Sven, it's been a pleasure.
Thanks for your time.
Thank you.